live from the Counterpunch Media mobile studios in Grand Blanc, Michigan. It's time for real lives, real families, real fitness. It's time for Derek Noel Fitness.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 14 of Derek Noel Fitness Live. We got a great show for you today. I know we were gone this last week for Father's Day. Hopefully, for those people who celebrated Father's Day, you had a great time. I know I did. We just kind of had a nice, relaxing day. I posted a video the day of. I was in the middle of grilling some steaks. We all enjoyed those. It was really tasty. We're going to have an awesome, loaded show today. I really feel like this is going to help out a lot of people. So, the topic, by the way, in case you didn't know, is personal training and group training and the pros and cons of both. So if you're explaining it to someone, you can just say, hey, we're going personal versus group training, which is better for you. So if you have someone who's looking to get into fitness, or maybe you are one of those people yourselves, this is the episode for you. You'll be able to figure out which direction you should go, or I'm going to tell you outright, my recommendation is to try both before you commit to one or the other. If you only ever knew one, maybe, dabble, or if you know both and you work better with one or the other, the one thing I can tell you is it's going to be better than training by yourself. And that's coming from someone who is a group trainer primarily. So, first off, let's talk about personal training versus group training. Oh, and by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'll be checking that throughout the show and answering them probably the last couple minutes of the show. So if you have any questions at all about this stuff, or you can always shoot me a message too, that's fine. So let's define what individual versus group training is. Individual training or personal training is where you are working mostly one-on-one, or it can be considered like a small group training. So I would consider it 1 to 3 people. Very personal. So if I were your personal trainer, I would be working with you. Usually they're about 30-minute sessions. Some can go up to an hour, and it's very much one-on-one time. Group training, on the other hand, is more like your group class atmosphere. Things like CrossFit fit into it. Things like Fit Body Boot Camp, F45, Orange Theory, all of these things where you're working out in a big group, basically like a class or a session setting. That's what we're looking at for group training. And we're actually going to start out with individual training. So personal training. Full disclaimer, by the way, I do both myself. I am primarily a group training instructor, though. So a lot of my experience deals with group sessions and group training. That being said, I do work individually, and you'll be surprised the difference in demeanor that I have between the two, depending on which one we fall into or which mode I'm in, because it really does take 2 different modes to be able to handle both. So individual training, let's start off with some of the cons first. I'm going to go the bad, and then I'm going to go the good. Not trying to scare anyone off while I'm talking about the cons, but then we can see what we actually get for some of those cons. First off, personal training, one-on-one sessions specifically, can be very, very pricey when you look at it on the long term. A lot of personal trainers, when they're starting out, I know when I first started out, I was charging $20 per session, and that was about a 30 to a 45-minute session. Multiply that out 3 times a week, that's $60 a week, and then 4 to 5 weeks, depending on what it is, you're looking at anywhere between $240 and $300 for a personal trainer who's just starting out. Once they've gained some experience and their time starts to become more valuable, and as they become more busy, they're going to start charging more. I know some personal trainers who have started charging upwards of $100 a session, so you're looking at a giant price range and a giant investment into a personal trainer where a lot of people may not be able to afford that full amount. So keep that in mind. That's con number 1. Number 2, some personal trainers, especially some extroverted ones, can be very in your face. And what I mean by that is sometimes you would like the more gentle approach, someone to be more in your corner. Sometimes personal trainers will just get you to go as hard as you can, all you can. I'm not saying it's a good coaching philosophy, because it's not, but some people can be very in your face. So if you're really struggling for those last couple reps, they can either be right by you, or they can be straight up like almost like a drill sergeant, just right on you, yelling at you instead of working with you to get those last couple reps. So you got to watch out for that. And by the way, every personal trainer is different. Every personal trainer has his or her style. So keep that in mind whenever you're going through. You should really be sitting down with these people before you dedicate yourself to a personal training session to see even if your personality is meld. Number 3, for your cons, certifications aren't a full requirement in order to be considered a personal trainer. So what that means is sometimes personal trainers don't go through due process. They just rely on the fact that they've been working out for 15 years to think that they are an effective trainer. For some people, that works. Some people don't have the money starting out to get a certification, or they've just been working in it since they were little. Some of them are athletes turned coaches and trainers, which may or may not be a good thing depending on how that athlete grew up, because I can tell you from watching some high school athletes perform in the gym, probably not the best base, but these certifications aren't required. So whenever you're looking for a personal trainer to work with, just make sure that they have a certification somewhere to make sure that they are up to date. Or if you know something about health and fitness, you can ask them. If they give you the runaround, that's generally not a good sign. So you should definitely talk to them about it. It should be current, or if they're in between certifications or waiting on theirs to come in, their recertification to come in, those are all different stories. Talk to the person about this. Along with that certifications not being required part, a lot of personal trainers can actually be underqualified in nutrition aspects. Good gauge is if you ask them for a meal plan and they tell you to eat sub 1,000 calories. I don't really care who you are. If they automatically jump to something like 1,000 to 1,100 calories, typically, I'm going to say outright, and this may catch me some flack, they don't really know what they're talking about. Your body needs a certain amount of calories in order to even do things. And that's basic like nutrition 101. So if they don't even give you that answer, or and it depends, and they want to ask some more probing questions, then there's a sign there too. Fun fact, nutrition without a degree or a certification, so if they're not a registered dietitian or certified nutritionist, or they have another certification in nutrition somewhere, technically specific nutrition instruction is out of their scope. Keep that in mind. They are good for some advice, but technically they shouldn't be giving you advice that a certified nutritionist should be giving you. And like I say all the time, I'm a personal trainer. That's what my certification was in. That's what my scope is. I can give advice, but you should always be referring out in cases of injuries or nutrition or anything. You should be referring to someone who's certified as a nutritionist or a certified physical therapist or a doctor to be taking care of these things. Do not use a personal trainer's word as the end-all, be-all. As much as having that much power would be fun, it can also be very damaging if you don't know those things. Number 4 or 5, I'm already losing track. This is a good show. Going back to their priciness, they are very much time for dollar oriented. In order for a personal trainer to be successful, basically they have to, especially if they're working one-on-one, basically they have to cram their schedule full of people in order to make the most money they can, and they might end up capping out, which is why as they get busier, they might start charging more because their time becomes more valuable, and if they can make more money for that 30-minute or an hour-long session, then they're going to. And for some, if you have that rapport or you've been working with them for a really long time, they might make an exception, they might not. They might straight up tell you that their rate is going up, and if you can't meet that rate, then they might refer it out or maybe even tell you that you're out of luck. So keep that in mind, that one-on-one personal training is very much a time for dollar effort for personal trainers. It's neither here nor there. It's not a good or a bad thing, but just know that that's what you might be getting into. Egos can also run rampant in personal trainers one-on-one, especially if they have one client who has seen rockstar results, and it may or may not be because of the personal trainer. It might be an elite athlete who is already there. By the way, fun fact, personal trainers who work with athletes are more in a maintenance mode than a strength building mode. Those athletes were already there, and especially in the season. So say if I were working with an elite linebacker, my job in season isn't to make them any stronger or any faster. It's to maintain their fitness level and make sure that they don't get injured. So make sure that they're working at different intensities that are not going to breed injury. So when you see these personal trainers talking about they're working with elite athletes, that means they are very, very good at their jobs, don't get me wrong, but those athletes are also in maintenance modes a lot. And then when the off season comes, that's when they can start to work in those strength portions and things like that. And for some, personal training might be too slow. A lot of times it's strength-based. Sometimes you'll get some that put a good mix in, or you might, if you're working with them enough, they might have strength-based days and cardio days. For some people, those pure strength days might be too slow, and they might not necessarily feel like they're doing anything, or they're doing very much. That is a whole other conversation unto itself, but long story short, soreness is not a good indicator of a good workout. There are many other indicators and trackers that us as personal trainers can use besides soreness. So if you're going in and you're wondering like, I'm a little sore all the time, you're actually in a pretty good spot. If you feel like you can't walk for a week after leg day with your personal trainer, they're pushing you a little bit too hard. So keep that in mind. Those are the cons that I wanted to talk about for personal training. Let's talk about some of the pros. Pro number one is it is very individualized. In most cases, working with a personal trainer one-on-one, they are building your program specifically for you, for your weight, for your body type, for your goals. That is what they are there for. They are help you to achieve your goals. If you're just using them as like get a quick workout, start asking more of your personal trainer. I guarantee you that they would love to help. And if not, then it's time to find someone else. It's also a good way to build a relationship with your trainer. As someone who works, and this actually applies to group and personal training, specifically what I'm about to talk about is when I know what is going on with my clients outside of the gym, it honestly helps me program and it helps me coach them a lot more. And being a personal trainer, working with someone that you see 3 days a week for 30 minutes or an hour at a time is a very, very good way to build that relationship so that your coach can be the most effective coach that he or she can be. Some people will try and hide like, oh, hey, I have an achy knee, or hey, I fell down the stairs because it was icy. And those things can really help us out because that'll tell us, oh, hey, maybe we need to lay off of this, or if you've only gotten an hour of sleep, maybe we need to adjust some of our programming on the fly to cater for more of a fatigued state. So not doing something that's going to require a lot of high motor function. That means basically really compound movements. That way there's less risk of injury, because the more tired you are, the more your risk of injury goes up, and we don't want to see you get injured either. Number one, we usually care about our clients, and number two, that actually impacts us financially as well. So we want to make sure it's in our best interest to make sure that you do not get injured. And if you feel like you're going to be getting injured doing something, again, talk to your coach. If they have a good reason for you to do something, or if you're just not comfortable with the movement, make sure you communicate. Communication is big with this. Number three, you will be pushed. The personal trainer is there to make sure you can reach your fullest potential. And again, training and coaching, they want to make sure that you are as successful as possible because, again, it impacts them as well. If they have a great relationship with you and they build great results with you, whether it's strength-based, fat loss-based, whatever, chances are you're going to tell your friends, you might refer them to him, and guess what? That's more money in his pocket too for just doing a good job. So it's really reinforcing for everything that we will push you because we want to see you get those results. Number one, because we care, and number two, because it helps us out long term to help build those testimonials. And I really think that all of us have seen testimonial videos. The next one we're talking about is avoiding injuries. Again, that kind of goes into the whole individualization and the relationship. They'll help you avoid the injuries. I already talked about that. They'll help you set some goals. People really like losing fat. That's one of the big goals, and it is a nice one starting out, but sometimes you need to build that strength. So make sure that you're talking with your coach. I really like doing one big strength gaining phase, one fat loss phase, and one maintenance phase in between to make sure, and I'm talking per year, by the way, to make sure that we get a nice cyclical long-term success rate going. If we can build success over time, then that's going to lead to greater results over time. They'll also keep you accountable. They'll teach you things. You might naturally just learn things. And going back to that time for dollar, there's really no wasted time. They want to make sure that they get you in, they get you with an awesome workout, and they get you out. So if that's something that you're looking for, we got pros and cons for individual training. We're going to take a break real quick, and then I'm going to bust into group training.
You're listening to Derek Noel Fitness here on IPMNation.com/counterpunch. He'll bring the smarts. Now the sweat, well, that's up to you.
And we are back. Talking with my hands a lot today. It's really fun. So we just got done talking about individual training, which is really good. And for some people, we talked about pros and cons. If you've never built one of those lists, there you go, we're laying it out. I talked a little bit on the coaching end from our mindset too, because I feel like whenever you're talking to someone, if you can understand where they're coming from, then it'll help you get a better picture of what's going on. Let's talk about group training now. Again, I am primarily a group trainer. A lot of people work with me. I've been doing this for over 2 years now, and I love every second of it. Again, we're going to start with some of the cons of group training for someone who's never done it before. Number one is there is a lot less personal attention, or in some cases, no personal attention given in a group fitness workout, because they need to focus on the class as a whole. And keep that in mind, if you have 2 or 3 coaches on the floor moving around, one of those coaches will be able to give you more personal attention. When there's only one coach, if you're above a certain number, it's very, very hard to make sure that everyone is getting taken care of individually. They might give blanket modifications for those people, or if you have a quick question and they're used to it, they can just snap something off. But for the most part, there's very little personal attention given because they're writing for a group as a whole and not that individual person. They can also be naturally very competitive. I'm a very competitive person. When I'm in a group training session myself, not as a coach, but as a client working in a group training or working out in a group training atmosphere, I'm looking at what the other people are doing and I'm trying to compete and keep up with them. It naturally pushes you. That can be good or bad. It's good if you're at a similar level or you're just having one of those off days and you need that little extra push and you can bring that competitive edge in a little bit to help push you. But it's also a bad thing if it's your first or second day and you're walking in and you see everyone trying to compete with each other and outdo each other, and it can be very intimidating, but it can also be dangerous. If you're trying to do things that your body has no business doing, so for example, I don't let anyone do a barbell back squat unless they can show me that they have proper form with both a body weight squat and with a dumbbell weighted squat, because I don't want anyone, especially in a group training atmosphere, to be doing something that they shouldn't be doing and then I miss it because I'm over here, because again, I can't give that attention. But then you wanted to do the back squat because you saw Sally next to you doing it, and Sally over here has been trained how to properly do it and can actually move some weight, whereas you're in your first or second week and you aren't able to do those things. Keeping that in mind, like I said, that competitive edge can be both a good and a bad thing. I have it listed under cons because that natural competitiveness, you really should only be competing with yourself. You shouldn't be competing with Sally who's been here for 3 years. Next up, it's usually restricted to high volume, high intensity training, which is great for cardiovascular health. It's great to help get yourself back into shape. It's great for burning fat. There's a whole study talking about the afterburn effect and post-workout energy expenditure, burning, calorie burning, whatnot. But it has its limits. High-intensity interval training is great for those things, but it actually makes it harder to build base strength right off the bat because it is moving super fast. And again, there are going to be some programs that are tailored in, like you have a dedicated strength movement and then you do a cardiovascular movement, or you might be doing these movements. But for the most part, it's lighter weights just to keep you moving, because in a group training atmosphere and for fat loss, the most important thing is that you are moving. So if you're looking to build strength quickly, group training might or might not be the best for you. There are more basic movements in there, so someone who's been working out for a really long time might need something a little bit more complex. So making sure that everyone can participate in a group training session basically mandates that some of those movements are going to be more basic. or they might be scaled up or down, or customized up and down, or however you want to call it, for each person. Or they might, again, give blanket things, so like jump squats, but if you can't jump because of your knees, just do regular squats instead, keeping things like that. The other things, which I know for one I am guilty of because I digress a lot when I'm talking, is sometimes they're liable to get off topic, especially if a busier session and that coach is trying to keep attention of everyone because they need to explain something, and then you have 5 or 6 people talking in the background. It can be very distracting having all of those other people around. Usually that's in the more high energy sessions. And lastly, one of the last cons, that's redundant, they can move very quickly. So if you're not used to something moving quickly, if you're not used to moving around the room quickly, then it can get overwhelming, especially for someone who's just starting out. So making sure to take it slow, finding someone who's been there for a little bit to kind of pair up with, who knows the ropes. I know myself as a coach, I try and pair up someone new with someone who's been there for a little while, just to help teach them the room a little bit more. And I tell them to go 50%. Whenever you're starting something new, you should always be easing into it. You should not go full bore 1 million miles an hour in. Let's talk about some pros though. Some pros of group training are, number one, they're great to be held accountable. Not always by your coach, because your coach a lot of times has to focus on the group as a whole, or they're in charge of some places. I know one group training facility has upwards of like 700 members in it. It's very hard as a coach with that many people to be able to have personal connection enough to be able to keep everyone accountable. But the people that you work out with and the friends that you make, especially if you're doing this with a family member or something like that, it's great to be held accountable by those people. I know people who will straight up call people out on Facebook if they don't show up. They'll just be like, hey, where were you today? This was an awesome workout. And then all of a sudden they go, oh crap, I need to make sure I show up. And then even when they're not feeling it, then they'll still show up and get their workout in. Second one, for the most part, they are very high energy. So my favorite sessions are the early morning ones because it's filled with people who want to be there. And I feel like it's almost like a morning cup of coffee. It really gets everyone fired up. Everyone gets ready to go. You have a ton of energy throughout the rest of the day. And it honestly just helps the workout go faster. With all of that energy going on, it'll help you get through the workout. And it'll go faster because you're having fun. You also don't have to think about the workout, which is really nice. You have someone in a group training facility who is writing the workouts for you basically every day. All you have to do is show up and do it. You don't have to think about the workout unless we have to deal with some modifications. So if you have something bugging your knee, then there will be modifications to talk about with your coach. But for a lot of people, the added stress is just not knowing what to do. And with a group training facility, you don't need to worry about it because they'll literally tell you every day what you're doing. The other nice thing is you'll get to work out at your own pace. This is kind of like the opposite of that competition thing. You know what your body can and cannot handle a lot of times, so you'll be able to work out at your own pace even within there. So even if Sally is cranking out dumbbell thrusters with 30-pound dumbbells and she's doing 20 of them in 30 seconds and she's going through, just pulled numbers out of a hat there, by the way, and you're just starting out and you know for a fact that you can't do that, that's fine. You can be using 5 or 10-pound dumbbells and you can maybe be getting 8 to 10 of them in the 30 seconds, and you're going slower, but you know you're doing them right. And then when time is up, you get to move on to the next thing, and you're still working individually to your own needs, which is really, really nice. Variety is also key when you're doing that. As a coach, I really like to try and mix things up. I don't like to write the same exercises over and over and over again. If I notice that I do that, I actually put them on my own personal blacklist, and I shove them to the side for a little bit. When I was first starting writing workouts, I actually was doing that a lot because I found that I was starting to repeat myself a lot, and it might not always be the best. But going into a group training facility, you can look forward to the variety. You never know what you're going to get. Some things might be something that you're really strong at. Some things might be things you were very weak at, and it's nice to have those blends of things. So that way you're not always feeling like you're defeated, or you're not always feeling like that you weren't doing anything because you're so good at those movements. It's easier to learn in these situations too, because of the more basic movements, you can get those basics mastered fairly quickly, and then you can start to try and move into more advanced things. But again, that room for advancement is kind of limited based on the session, so you need to figure out where you're at with that. And again, talking to your coaches, I know a lot of group training coaches love when clients talk to them outside because it does offer that little bit of personalization And if we know that something's going on or know that you're specifically ready, we can come over, let you know what to do real quick, and then go on our merry way. And this next one is going into that accountability and high energy part. It's really easy for you to be pushed harder by your peers. A lot of people find really good friends who are in very similar fitness levels. And within that group, you can really start to be pushed harder. So when you're really struggling to get those last couple reps, having that extra person next to you who you may or may not even know, or my favorite, when we're at boot camp and someone is calling out across the room to someone at our battle rope station. Battle ropes are really fun, by the way, if you've ever tried them. They're basically weighted ropes that we move around. If someone's struggling on those, we'll hear people all the way across the room call over to help them out. Then all of a sudden, oh, hey, that person is watching me. Man, I really better go. So we've talked pros and cons of group training, pros and cons of individual training. I do want to say a couple things about both when you're choosing. If you have a lot of health needs or a lot of things to watch for, if your body has just been really run down or you've been talking to doctors a lot, individual training is honestly going to be the better way to go to start out with, and then moving into group training, just because a lot of times you're going to need that attention, and sometimes in group training situations that attention won't always be able to be paid. And then if you're deciding that you should jump but you had a hip replacement and your doctor told you not to, but you think you can anyways, and the group training instructor hasn't been able to catch you on it, then all of a sudden we might have an issue. Versus if you're in a individual training situation, that won't happen because that coach or trainer knows what to look for, and they're specifically programming things that you can do instead of worrying about things that you can't. So keep that in mind with individual or group training. For a lot of people who don't have very many health issues, who are just looking to get started into fitness, going group training to start out with is honestly a really good bet, because like I said, it's a really low barrier to entry. You can get yourself in the door. There are going to be people there to support you. One of my favorite things about where I work is if I have someone new walking in the door, I can rely on whoever is there with me in terms of client base to welcome those people in with open arms and really make them feel like a part of the family, which is something I'm very proud of them for doing, because not every place has that culture, and that's something that I pride myself on, is having that culture of people who will help others. Individual training, if you are already an athlete, if you are someone who's working really hard, group training might not be the way to go. It's really good cardio, but if you're looking for something, if you're a strength athlete and you're looking to add 50 more pounds to your bench press because you're a power lifter, individual training is probably going to be the way to go for you. So again, know what your goals are, sit down with someone, figure them out, and then they can help you figure out from there. Let's go look at some questions real quick. We're going to check the feed before we call this a day. Marcy's watching, that's for sure. Marcy says, love the battle ropes, love calling people out and cheering them on. Marcy, I can tell you, you are one of the best people at that, being able to call out other people, and not in a bad way, by the way. I'm not talking calling out in a bad way, but being able to, literally, when I talked about cheering across the room, Marcy here is one of the best people I know at that. She is very good at getting loud very quickly, and my vocal cords are jealous of the sounds that she can make because my voice just cracks. So hopefully this video helps you out. Dropping that phone real quick. Hopefully this video helps you out. If you think that this video will help someone else out, someone on your friends list who may not be working out or may be interested in working out, please share this to their timeline, share this on your feed, send it to a friend. You can literally text the link. We're going to be posting the Facebook links and stuff like that, YouTube links all over the place. You can check it out on IPM Nation. Thank you to Mr. Matt Connaughton and IPM Nation and Brian Brody for bringing me in and giving me the opportunity to make this a weekly show. I'm having a blast with it. Hopefully you are too. Like I said, please give this a like, a share, drop a comment below. And remember, every Tuesday you can listen to the audio version of this wherever you listen to your podcast. We are on Spotify and iTunes and all of those good places. So check it out. Have a good Sunday night, everybody.